Have you ever looked back at your relationship and thought, honestly, if she had acted like that on the third date, I never would have stayed? And of course, you wouldn't have. Nobody signs up for years of walking on eggshells. Nobody signs up to be manipulated, controlled, criticized, blamed. And that's exactly what makes toxic relationships so confusing. Because if all of those behaviors had shown up in the beginning, most people would definitely have walked away. But often they don't because the behavior shows up later, after you're in love, after you're attached, after you've built a whole life around the relationship. I'm Lise Leblanc, therapist, author, and life coach. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 red flags that often do not emerge until you're already heavily invested. So the first red flag is the accountability disappears. So in the beginning, maybe she could apologize. Maybe she could take responsibility at least some of the time. And she seemed reflective, maybe emotionally mature even. But as the relationship progressed, something changes. Now there's always a justification, an excuse, someone to blame, you, her parents, her ex, trauma, stress. Basically, everyone is to blame except herself. And over time, you notice something unsettling. You're the only one self reflecting. You're the only one asking, what could I have done differently or what could I do differently? You're the only one trying to improve. And eventually you realize that accountability only seems to flow in one direction. And this creates a very frustrating situation because every problem is your fault, and that makes every solution your responsibility. The second red flag is that your boundaries become the problem. So early on, your boundaries are respected. You have your own friends, your own interests, your own opinions, and it seems fine. But once attachment forms, boundaries start creating emotional friction and reactions. Now saying no becomes selfish, taking space becomes silent treatment, disagreeing becomes invalidation, having needs becomes some kind of attack. And the relationship starts teaching you a dangerous lesson. The easiest way to keep the peace is to abandon yourself. So you start making small adjustments, small sacrifices, but eventually those small sacrifices become your entire personality. And without realizing it, you've submitted. The third red flag is that you start walking on eggshells. And this rarely happens overnight. It's very gradual. So at first, there might be a topic that you avoid because it causes a fight, and then another, and then another. And you start choosing your words more carefully. You start monitoring your tone. You start rereading texts before sending them, rehearsing conversations in your head before talking to her. And you get more and more strategic. And you tell yourself you're just trying to be thoughtful, maybe being considerate or trying to communicate better. But eventually something clicks and you realize that you don't feel free anymore. You're not speaking naturally. You're not being yourself. You're constantly scanning for emotional landmines. The fourth red flag is that the rules keep changing. And this is one of the most psychologically destabilizing red flags because no matter what you do, the target keeps moving. Maybe she wants more honesty, so you tell her the truth. Now you're being insensitive. Maybe she wants more reassurance. Now you're being smothering. So it's like playing a game where the rules constantly change every time you're about to win. And that's why these relationships often leave men feeling confused and exhausted, not because they're actually failing, because they're trying to solve a problem that keeps shifting. And eventually you stop trusting your own judgment because nothing seems to work consistently. The fifth red flag is the push-pull cycle. And this is often where trauma bonds are formed because now you're not dealing with one version of her, you're dealing with multiple versions. And one day she's telling you that you're the best thing that's ever happened to her. And then the next day she's acting like you are the source of all of her problems. And your nervous system becomes trapped trying to predict which version of her is going to show up today. And this creates a powerful reward system because every time she pulls away, your anxiety rises. And every time she reconnects, relief floods your system. So you start craving the good version of her, the loving version, the version that you fell in love with. And eventually you become less focused on whether the relationship is healthy and more focused on getting that version back. The sixth red flag is that reality starts revolving around her. In toxic relationships, your reality gets dictated. Suddenly, she's deciding what happened, what it meant, who was hurt, who was wrong, who was responsible. And if your interpretation doesn't match hers, conflict follows. And over time, you might start questioning your memory, your judgment, your intentions, and even your reality. And once that self doubt enters the relationship, control becomes much easier. The seventh red flag is that the relationship becomes all about her and her emotions and her needs and her boundaries. And all of your energy is now going towards stabilizing her, managing her moods, calming her fears, fixing her distress, reducing her anxiety. And eventually you realize something profound. Your whole world is organized around her emotional state. If she's upset, everything stops and the world revolves around her. And that's when many men realize they're no longer participating in a healthy relationship. They're in a system where their role is to be the emotional caretaker, the regulator, the rescuer, and the shock absorber and the punching bag. And the longer you stay in that role, the more you shrink until eventually you realize that you're spending so much time managing her that you stop living your own life. So if you've been beating yourself up because you didn't see red flags sooner or you ignored them, remember this. Many of the red flags didn't appear until after you were already attached, after you'd invested fully, after you'd built a life around the relationship, maybe even had kids together. And that's why leaving isn't nearly as simple as people think. So instead of asking, why didn't I see it sooner? Ask yourself, when did I start abandoning myself to keep this relationship going? Because that answer will give you a lot more information than any red flag ever will. And that's why this wasn't a simple matter of walking away. Because by the time these patterns became obvious, leaving no longer felt like losing a relationship. It felt like losing your future, your identity, your purpose, your hope, your fantasy of who she could be or who she was before. And that's exactly why so many intelligent, successful men stay far longer than they ever imagined they would and tolerated way more. And once you can see this clearly and realistically, you can stop blaming yourself for missing red flags and you can start making decisions based on reality instead of hope. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comment section below. And if you're serious about recovering from a toxic relationship, check out my toxic relationship recovery program that I link below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.